They all froze when I kicked open the double mahogany doors of the Whitlock mansion. French champagne glasses paused mid-toast, laughter caught in their throats. My boots, soaked with snow, left dripping footprints on their polished marble floor as I stood there holding my daughter, barefoot, shivering, nearly unconscious. "So this is your idea of family?" Those were the only 6 words I said. And it was enough to silence every soul in that gilded room. Emily clung to me like a child. Her cheeks were pale, lips blue, and the silk blouse she wore was soaked with melting snow, all while her in-laws feasted on prime rib and toasted Dom Perignon in front of a roaring fireplace. That's when I realized they didn't just abandon her, they erased her. But let me take you back to how we got here. My name is Margaret Cooper, though most of my former students know me as Coach Maggie. For 25 years, I've trained state champions in Taekwondo. My reputation reached every corner of the West Coast. But while I traveled for competitions and trained elite teams, I left someone behind. Emily, my only daughter. I raised her alone after her father walked out when she was 3. Every tournament, every weekend seminar, every late night at the dojo, it was all for her. To give her the life I never had. A stable home, college without debt, opportunities that weren't available to a woman like me who grew up with nothing. Emily grew into everything I hoped she'd be. Brilliant, compassionate, and kind to a fault. Too kind, as it turned out. The type of kind that breaks itself for others. "Mom, I met someone," she told me 4 years ago, her voice bubbling with the kind of excitement I hadn't heard since she was a child. "His name is Ryan Whitlock." The Whitlocks. Even I knew that name. Ryan was handsome in that polished way that spoke of private schools and sailing lessons. His family owned half of Boise. Old money that had its fingers in everything from real estate to tech startups. His, mother, Evelyn, chaired 3 charity boards. His father, Harold, was a retired federal judge whose connections ran deeper than tree roots. I should have seen it then. The way Ryan's eyes assessed Emily like she was an acquisition. The way Evelyn's smile never quite reached her eyes when she met the martial arts instructor at their engagement party. "They're just different, Mom," Emily would say whenever I asked about the strained smiles and hushed conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. "I'm still learning their ways," as if basic human decency was a regional dialect. The wedding was a spectacle. 500 guests in a cathedral, followed by a reception at the governor's mansion. I wore a dress that cost 3 months of my salary, and still, Evelyn managed to make me feel like I'd shown up in gym clothes. "Emily looks lovely," she said, sipping champagne. "Though we had hoped she might consider wearing my mother's dress. It's been in the family for generations." A pause, a pointed look. But I suppose new traditions must start somewhere. The first year seemed fine from the outside. Emily and Ryan moved into a glass and stone mansion in the foothills, with views of the entire city. She quit her job as an elementary school teacher at Evelyn's insistence. "A Whitlock wife has obligations, dear," and threw herself into their world of galas and fundraisers. But the calls grew less frequent. Our Sunday brunches became monthly, then quarterly. When we did speak, Emily's voice carried a tightness I recognized from my own marriage years ago, the sound of someone constantly holding their breath. "Is everything okay with Ryan?" I asked once, directly. "He works so hard," she answered, which wasn't an answer at all. Then came the miscarriages. 4 in 3 years. Each one breaking something in my daughter that I couldn't fix from 2 states away, where I was building my business, training champions, thinking I was securing our future. After the 4th, I flew to Boise without telling her. I arrived to find her alone in that massive house, curled on the sofa, staring at nothing. "Where's Ryan?" I asked. "Business trip." Her voice was hollow. "His mother thought it best he keep to his schedule. She says dwelling on these things only makes them harder." I stayed for a week. Evelyn visited once, bringing a gift basket of herbal teas and a book titled Overcoming Emotional Weakness. "You really must pull yourself together, Emily," she said as she air-kissed my daughter's cheek. "The Montgomery Gala is next month, and appearances matter." When I left, I made Emily promise to call more often. She did, for a while. But by last fall, our conversations had dwindled to brief texts and occasional voicemails. "I'm fine, Mom. Just busy with the foundation work. Sorry I missed your call. We had the senator over for dinner. Can't talk now. Heading to Evelyn's charity auction." I was training the junior nationals in Seattle when December arrived, scheduled to fly back to Portland for Christmas. But something felt wrong. Call it maternal instinct or just the weight of too many unanswered messages. So I changed my flight. On Christmas Eve, I landed in Boise instead. Snow was falling heavily as the taxi pulled up to the Whitlock estate. Through the gates, I could see the mansion glowing with warmth, Christmas lights outlining every perfect architectural feature, smoke curling from the chimney, cars lined up in the circular driveway. I paid the driver and walked toward the house, gift bag in hand. That's when I saw her. On the side patio, partially hidden from the driveway, a figure huddled on a wicker chair. No coat, no shoes, just a thin silk blouse and black pants, now dusted with snow. Emily. My daughter was outside in a blizzard while the house behind her blazed with light and celebration. I dropped my bag and ran to her. Her skin was ice cold, her eyes unfocused. Emily, what are you doing out here? Her blue lips barely moved. Mom, I didn't want to ruin their dinner. Through the glass doors behind her, I could see them. The Whitlocks and at least 20 guests in evening wear, laughing around a table laden with food. A Christmas tree towered in the corner, presents stacked beneath it, and my daughter sat freezing not 20 feet away, invisible. I lifted her in my arms like I used to when she was small. She weighed nothing, a hollow version of herself. Without thinking, I carried her toward the main entrance, fury building with each step. This wasn't just neglect. This was cruelty masquerading as class, and I was about to shatter their perfect Christmas tableau. The silence that followed my entrance was absolute. 24 faces stared back at me, frozen in that peculiar way of people caught in an act they never expected to be witnessed. Ryan recovered first, his handsome face arranging itself into practiced concern as he set down his champagne flute. Emily, what's going on? I held my daughter closer as she trembled against me. She was outside, in the snow, without a coat. Evelyn Whitlock rose from her seat at the head of the table, pearl necklace gleaming against her cashmere sweater. Margaret, what a surprise. We weren't expecting you. Her eyes flicked to Emily with something closer to irritation than concern. Emily, dear, what were you thinking? You'll catch your death. The casualness of her tone made my blood boil, as if my daughter had simply forgotten an umbrella rather than been abandoned in freezing temperatures. Someone get her a blanket, I snapped, looking around at the sea of uncomfortable faces. A young server hurried forward with a throw from one of the sofas. Harold Whitlock cleared his throat, adjusting his bow tie. Perhaps we should move this discussion somewhere private. Your guests can wait, I said, wrapping the blanket around Emily's shoulders. I want to know why my daughter was outside while you're all in here. Celebrating. Ryan approached, reaching for Emily with manicured hands. Let me take her upstairs. She's been unstable lately. Emily flinched away from his touch. It was subtle, but I saw it. In 28 years of being her mother, I'd never seen my daughter shrink from anyone. Don't touch her, I warned, stepping back. She's my wife, Ryan said, a flash of anger breaking through his polished veneer. And she's freezing. Where were you when she needed you? A woman in a red cocktail dress rose awkwardly from the table. Perhaps we should give the family some privacy. No, please stay, Evelyn cut in smoothly. This is clearly a misunderstanding. Emily has been under tremendous pressure lately. After her most recent disappointment, she's been quite emotional. Disappointment. The word hung in the air like poison. You mean her miscarriage? I said plainly, watching Evelyn's perfect features tighten. The fourth one that your son left her to handle alone? Gasps rippled through the room. Apparently, the Whitlock's perfect family narrative didn't include reproductive trauma. This is inappropriate, Harold growled, standing now. His authority filled the room, the voice that had sentenced criminals and swayed juries for decades. Emily chose to step outside. No one forced her. I looked down at my daughter, who was beginning to shiver less violently as the warmth of the house penetrated her frozen limbs. Is that true, Emily? Did you choose to sit in a blizzard without a coat? For a moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice so quiet, I almost missed it. They said I was bringing down the mood, that my sadness was ruining Christmas. The room seemed to hold its collective breath. We simply suggested she compose herself before rejoining the party, Evelyn clarified, her diamond earrings catching the light as she tilted her head. The holidays are difficult enough without what? I challenged. Without constant reminders of failure, Ryan finished, his voice cold now that the pretense of concern had dropped. Do you have any idea what it's like living with someone who can't stop crying? Who can't perform the most basic duties expected of her? Emily's fingers dug into my arm. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though whether to me or to them, I couldn't tell. "Don't you dare apologize," I told her fiercely, before addressing the room. "My daughter lost a child, her fourth. She deserves compassion, not punishment." "What she deserves," Evelyn said, with steel in her voice, "is privacy while she pulls herself together. Not this spectacle." She gestured toward us with manicured fingers, as if we were an unsightly stain on her perfect tablescape. I looked around the room, taking in the uncomfortable glances, the averted eyes, the nervous fidgeting with silverware and napkins. These people, the elite of Boise society, would return to their own homes tonight and whisper about the scene they'd witnessed, about poor Ryan Whitlock and his unstable wife, about the crude martial arts instructor who'd interrupted their Christmas dinner, and not one of them would speak the truth, that they had sat, eating and drinking while a woman froze outside their window. "Emily's coming with me," I said finally, adjusting my grip to support her better. "She needs warmth, rest, and people who actually care whether she lives or dies." Ryan stepped forward, his face flushed now. "She's not going anywhere. Emily, tell your mother you're staying." For the first time since I'd carried her in, Emily raised her head. Her eyes, though still glazed with cold, held something I hadn't seen in years, a spark of her old self. "No," she said. It was barely a whisper, but in that silent room, it might as well have been a shout. "What did you say?" Ryan demanded, disbelief etching across his features. Emily took a shuddering breath. "I said no. I'm going with my mom." The facade cracked completely. Ryan's handsome face contorted with rage. "After everything we've given you? You ungrateful—" "That's quite enough," Harold interrupted, placing a restraining hand on his son's arm, his eyes, cold and calculating, fixed on me. "Margaret, I'm not sure you understand what you're doing. The Whitlock family has significant influence in this community. Emily has commitments, obligations. She has hypothermia." I shot back. "And the only obligation she has right now is to herself." I turned toward the door, Emily still in my arms despite the protest of my aging muscles. 25 years of martial arts training had left me stronger than most women my age, but she was still a grown woman, and I wasn't as young as I once was. "Her things," Evelyn began, "can wait," I finished for her. "I'll send someone for them tomorrow." As we reached the door, Ryan called after us, his voice tight with fury. "If she leaves now, she's not coming back. Do you hear me, Emily? You walk out that door and you're no longer a Whitlock." I felt Emily stiffen against me, years of conditioning making her hesitate. For a terrible moment, I thought she might give in, might choose the golden cage over freedom. Then she turned, her head slightly, meeting her husband's gaze. "I never was," she said quietly. We left them standing there, Ryan red-faced with rage, Evelyn perfectly composed except for the ice in her eyes, Harold already reaching for his phone, no doubt calling in favors to damage control the situation. Outside, the snow continued to fall, transforming the world into something clean and quiet. I managed to get Emily to my rental car and cranked the heat to full blast. As we pulled away from the mansion, I saw figures moving behind the windows, the party resuming, the moment of disruption already being smoothed over, erased. "Mom," Emily whispered, her teeth still chattering slightly. "What have I done?" I reached over and squeezed her freezing hand. "You chose yourself, baby." For the first time in years. As the Whitlock estate disappeared in the rearview mirror, I knew this was just the beginning. People like the Whitlocks didn't let go easily. They didn't lose gracefully, but neither did I. And they were about to learn what happened when you messed with a fighter's daughter. The hotel room wasn't much, a generic double at the Holiday Inn Express off the interstate, but it was warm. After a hot shower and dressed in my spare sweatpants and t-shirt, Emily finally stopped shivering. She sat cross-legged on one of the beds, hands wrapped around a mug of tea from the lobby's 24-hour station. "I should call him," she said, staring into the steam rising from her cup. "Explain." I sat down across from her. "Explain what? Why you don't want to freeze to death on Christmas Eve?" "It wasn't like that. Not exactly." Her voice was small, defensive. "I was being difficult, crying at dinner. Evelyn said the congresswoman was uncomfortable. So they put you outside, like a dog?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I went out voluntarily. I just needed air. But then Ryan locked the door. He said I could come back in when I was ready to behave like a Whitlock." My hands curled into fists. 25 years of martial arts discipline was the only thing keeping me from driving back to that mansion. How long were you out there? She shrugged. An hour, maybe 2, I lost track. And nobody checked on you? I saw them looking through the window once. Evelyn said something to Ryan, and he just shook his head. I closed my eyes, trying to control my breathing. When I opened them, Emily was watching me with a familiar wariness, the look of someone accustomed to managing other people's emotions. I'm not angry at you, I clarified. I'm angry at them. I failed them, Mom. Over and over. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. I couldn't carry a baby, couldn't host parties without getting something wrong, couldn't be what they needed. What about what you needed? I asked. The question seemed to confuse her. She blinked, mouth opening slightly, as if no one had asked her that in years. She started, then stopped. I wanted to belong, to be good enough. Something inside me broke. I moved to sit beside her, wrapping an arm around shoulders that felt too thin, too fragile. You've always been good enough, I said, fiercely. Better than good enough. Exceptional. Brilliant. Kind. The Whitlocks didn't deserve you. She leaned against me, and for a moment, we were back in our old apartment. Emily at 12, heartbroken over some playground slight, me assuring her the world was bigger than middle school drama. Except this wasn't middle school. This was her life, her marriage, and I had been absent for too much of it. I should have seen it, I admitted, regret sour on my tongue. All those tournaments, all those training camps. I was so focused on building something for our future that I missed what was happening to you in the present. You can't blame yourself. I hid it well. Why? I asked. Why didn't you tell me how bad it was? Her smile was sad. You sacrificed everything for me, Mom. Your youth, relationships, opportunities. I wanted to prove it was worth it, that I could make this marriage work, that I could be successful. I didn't want to be one more disappointment. I held her tighter. You could never disappoint me. We sat in silence for a while, the muted sound of Christmas specials playing on the hotel TV. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing Boise in white silence. What happens now? Emily finally asked. It was a good question. In the rush to get her out of there, I hadn't thought beyond this moment. We sleep, I decided. Tomorrow's Christmas. We'll get breakfast, exchange whatever gifts we can find at a gas station, and figure out the rest. Ryan will come looking for me, she said, a tremor in her voice. The Whitlocks don't give up what belongs to them. You don't belong to anyone, I reminded her, and we'll deal with Ryan when the time comes. She nodded, unconvinced, and set her empty mug on the nightstand. As she slid under the covers, I saw a glimpse of the little girl she'd once been, trusting that her mother could fix anything. I wasn't sure I could fix this, but I'd die trying. After she fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom with the door closed, phone pressed to my ear. Jake, it's Maggie Cooper. I need a favor. Jake Martinez had been my student 15 years ago. A scrappy kid from the wrong side of Boise who'd found discipline in my dojo. Now he was a detective with the Boise PD. Coach Maggie, it's Christmas Eve. Everything okay? I gave him the abbreviated version. To his credit, he didn't interrupt. That's complicated, he said when I finished. Domestic disputes always are, especially with families like the Whitlocks. This isn't a dispute. It's emotional abuse. I hear you, but without documentation. Can you just check if there have been any calls to their address? Welfare checks, disturbances? He sighed. I'll see what I can find. But Coach, be careful. Harold Whitlock still has a lot of friends in this town. Judges, the DA. Half the force played golf with him at some point. I know. That's why I need someone I can trust. A pause. Let me make some calls. Stay where you are. I'll come by tomorrow. After hanging up, I sat watching Emily sleep, mapping our next moves like I would a tournament strategy. We needed evidence, witnesses, a record of the pattern, not just this one incident. Most importantly, we needed to stay ahead of whatever the Whitlocks would do next. I didn't have to wait long to find out. At 6:18 a.m., Emily's phone, which I'd plugged in beside mine, lit up with texts. Then calls, then more texts. Ryan, where the hell are you? Ryan, your mother kidnapped you. I'm filing a report. Ryan, you're humiliating this family. Again. I silenced the phone before it could wake her. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Ms. Cooper. Harold Whitlock's voice was measured, reasonable, the tone that had swayed juries for decades. I think we got off on the wrong foot last night. You think? Emotions were high. Misunderstandings occurred. But separating a husband and wife on Christmas? Surely you can see that's not the solution. The solution to what? Your son locking my daughter outside in freezing temperatures? A slight pause. Ryan assures me Emily chose to go outside. He simply respected her space. Is that what he calls it? Harold's sigh was practiced, patient, slightly condescending. Margaret, may I be frank? Emily has been struggling emotionally since her last miscarriage. Mood swings, irrational behaviors. Ryan has, been nothing but supportive. But there's only so much one man can do. So you're saying she's crazy. I'm saying she needs help. Professional help. Not her mother whisking her away in some misguided rescue mission. I watched Emily's chest rise and fall with deep, exhausted sleep. She has help now. Be reasonable, he pressed. Emily has no clothes, no personal items. Her life is here. Her community. Some community. They watched her freeze. An exaggeration. It was hardly below freezing. I closed my eyes, counted to 5. What do you want, Harold? I want you to bring my daughter-in-law home. Today. We'll overlook this episode and ensure she gets proper care. And if I don't, his voice cooled, then things will become unnecessarily difficult for both of you. Is that a threat? It's a reality. Emily signed a prenuptial agreement with very specific clauses about mental stability and abandonment. If she doesn't return home today, she leaves with nothing, not a penny. And given your modest circumstances, I doubt you can support both of you for long. I almost laughed. You think she stayed for money? I think she stayed because deep down she knows where she belongs, with her husband, with the family that took her in, the family that threw her out in the snow. Harold's patience was wearing thin. You have until noon. After that, we proceed formally. And Margaret? I've spent 40 years cultivating relationships with every judge in this state. Consider that before you turn this into a legal battle, you cannot win. He hung up before I could respond. I looked at Emily, still mercifully asleep, and wondered how many of these conversations she'd endured over the years, how many times she'd been made to doubt her own perceptions, her own worth. The patterns were familiar. My ex-husband had been a master of the same techniques, though he'd wielded them with fists instead of wealth. The isolation, the blame, the constant reminders of your inadequacy. But Harold had made a critical mistake. He'd threatened my daughter, and that was something I wouldn't allow, no matter how many judges he knew. My phone buzzed again. A text from Jake. Found something. Meeting you at 10. And one more thing. Check Emily's medical records. Every detail. I frowned at the cryptic message, but before I could puzzle it out, Emily stirred, her eyes opening to the unfamiliar room. For one heartbreaking moment, confusion gave way to remembrance, and I watched the events of last night wash over her again. "Merry Christmas, Mom," she whispered, voice rough with sleep. I managed a smile. "Merry Christmas, baby. How about some breakfast?" Jake met us at a diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place the Whitlocks would never set foot in, with vinyl. Booths and waitresses who called everyone Hon. He hugged me tight, then stepped back to look at Emily. "Hey, been a while." Emily offered a faint smile. "Hey, Jake. Still fighting crime?" "Trying to." He slid into the booth across from us, ordering coffee when the waitress came by. "You look better than I expected." "Mom's good at rescues," she said, fidgeting with her paper napkin. "Always. Has been." Jake turned to me. "Did you get any sleep?" "Enough." I hadn't, actually. I'd spent most of the night researching Idaho divorce laws and emotional abuse statutes on my phone. "What did you find?" He glanced around before leaning forward. 2 wellness checks at the Whitlock residence in the past year, both called in by neighbors who heard shouting. "What happened?" "Nothing. Officers," responded. Everything appeared fine. Emily said there was no problem. I looked at my daughter, who stared fixedly at her untouched pancakes. "I didn't want to make trouble," she murmured. "It was never physical." "It doesn't have to be," Jake said gently. "Emotional abuse is still abuse." "Try proving that to a judge," I muttered, remembering Harold's threat. Jake nodded grimly. "That's the challenge, especially with the Whitlocks' connections." He paused. "There's something else." I pulled Ryan's record. Clean as a whistle, except for one sealed juvenile case. "What kind of case?" "Can't tell, but I know someone who worked it. Says it involved a girlfriend at boarding school. Something bad enough that Harold paid a lot of money to make it disappear." My stomach tightened. And now, my daughter's married to him. Mom, stop, Emily protested weakly. Ryan never hit me. No, he just locked you outside to freeze, I reminded her. What else, Emily? What else has he done that you haven't told me? She pushed her plate away. It wasn't always bad. In the beginning, he was charming, attentive. But after the first miscarriage, something changed. He started spending more time at work. When he was home, he'd criticize everything, my cooking, my clothes, how I arranged flowers. Nothing was ever good enough. Classic control tactics, Jake commented. Isolate, demean, control. Emily continued, words spilling out like she'd held them back too long. Evelyn was worse. She'd help by rearranging my house, replacing things she thought weren't suitable. She once threw out an entire set of dishes because she said they were embarrassingly pedestrian. Those were my mother's dishes, I said. A wedding gift to you. Emily's eyes filled with tears. I know. I'm sorry. I should have stopped her. It's not your fault, I said, reaching for her hand. None of this is your fault. Jake cleared his throat. Did you check the medical records like I suggested? I shook my head. Haven't had a chance. What medical records? Emily asked. Jake looked uncomfortable. I have a friend who works at St. Luke's. After your last loss, there was some talk among the staff. Things that didn't add up. Emily paled. What things? Your hormone levels. The pattern of miscarriages. All identical. All at exactly the same stage of pregnancy. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the December weather. What are you suggesting? Jake met my eyes directly. I'm suggesting someone might have been tampering with Emily's medications, causing her to lose those babies intentionally. The diner seemed to still around us. Emily's hand in mine turned to ice. That's not possible, she whispered. Ryan wanted children. He was devastated each time. Was he? Jake asked quietly. Or was Evelyn? A memory surfaced. Evelyn at the engagement party, champagne flute in hand. Children complicate things. Ryan's focus should be on the business now. There's plenty of time for babies later. Emily's breathing quickened. She brought me tea. Every night. Said it was her special fertility blend. Jesus, I breathed. I need to see those records, Emily said suddenly, a new determination in her voice. I need to know. Jake nodded. My friend can help, but discreetly. If the Whitlocks get wind of this, they'll bury it, I finished. Like they buried Ryan's juvenile record. Exactly. And they'll bury both of you alongside it. The waitress refilled our coffees, oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated at our table. Emily stared into her cup, her face a mask of shock and dawning rage. If this is true, she said slowly, if Evelyn really did this, everything makes sense. The constant monitoring, the special foods, the way she insisted on managing my medications so I wouldn't forget. I fought the urge to break something. We need proof. Hard, irrefutable proof. Even with proof, going public against the Whitlocks is dangerous, Jakes warned. Harold wasn't bluffing about his connections. Neither am I about protecting my daughter, I countered. Emily looked between us, her expression shifting from shock to something harder. I want my things from the house, my journals, my laptop. There might be evidence there. Too risky, Jake said immediately. They won't let you walk in and out. They will if I tell them I'm coming. Back, Emily said. If I say I made a mistake leaving. Absolutely not, I protested. You're not going back there. Not permanently, she clarified. Just long enough to gather what I need, to find proof. Jake and I exchanged concerned looks. It's too dangerous, I insisted. It's my life, Mom, Emily said firmly. My marriages, my miscarriages, my choice. For years, I let them make all my decisions. Not anymore. Her voice had a steel I hadn't heard in years. The spark I'd glimpsed last night had kindled into something stronger. I'll go with you, I offered. She shook her head. They'll never let their guard down if you're there. It has to be just me. And what if they don't let you leave again? Jake asked. They will, Emily said with quiet confidence. Because this time, I know what I'm worth. We spent the rest of breakfast planning. Jake would be parked down the street as backup. I would wait at the hotel with the car running. Emily would have exactly 30 minutes to gather essential items and evidence. As we left the diner, Jake pulled me aside while Emily used the restroom. She's stronger than she looks, he said, watching her through the window. She is. I agreed. But so are they. I've got her back, coach. And yours. His loyalty warmed me. Why are you helping us, Jake? This could hurt your career. He looked away, jaw tight. Let's just say I've seen what powerful men can do to women they claim to love. My mother lived it. I won't stand by and watch it happen to someone else. I squeezed his arm, understanding. Thank you. When Emily returned, she seemed different. Shoulders straighter, chin higher. Ready? I asked. She nodded, a grim determination in her eyes. Ready to end this, one way or another. As we walked to our cars, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Tell Emily her time is running out. Noon, or we do this the hard way. I showed it to Emily, who read it with surprising calmness. Perfect timing, she said. Text him. Back. Tell him I'm coming home. Ryan was waiting on the porch when we pulled up to the mansion, arms crossed over his cashmere sweater. Even from the car, I could see the calculated shift in his expression, from stern disapproval to concerned relief, as Emily stepped out alone. Stay on the phone, I reminded her as she tucked her cell into her pocket, line open to mine. 30 minutes. Not a why. Second more. She nodded, squeezing my hand before closing the car door. I drove around the corner where Jake waited in his unmarked police cruiser, parking behind him so we both had a view of the house. She's in, I said, sliding into his passenger seat, phone pressed to my ear. Through the connection, I could hear Ryan's voice, tight with controlled anger. You embarrassed us in front of everyone, he was saying. Do you have any idea what damage control I've had to do? I'm sorry, Emily replied, her voice placating. I could picture her, head slightly bowed, the posture of appeasement she'd perfected over years of walking on eggshells. I wasn't thinking clearly. Clearly, Ryan scoffed. Your mother has always been a bad influence, filling your head with nonsense. How? Voices grew muffled as they entered the house. I caught fragments. Ryan lecturing, Emily apologizing, a door closing. What's happening? Jake asked, tension evident in his grip on the steering wheel. I can't tell. They've moved deeper into the house. We sat in strained silence, the clock on Jake's dashboard marking each passing minute. 23 minutes left. 22. 20. Suddenly the sound clarified on my phone. Emily must have entered their bedroom. I just need to freshen up, she was saying. Change into something appropriate before I see your parents. They're expecting us for lunch at the club, Ryan replied. Don't take forever. And wear the blue dress my mother bought you. Not that thing your mom sent for your birthday. Of course. A door closed and Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. Mom, can you hear me? Loud and clear, I responded immediately. Are you okay? Yes. I'm in our bathroom. I've got my journals from the nightstand, but I need to check the study for the medical files. Her voice was rushed, efficient. Ryan keeps everything. Be careful, I warned. 15 minutes left. I know. I heard rustling, a zipper. She must be packing a bag. For several minutes, the only sounds were Emily's careful movements and her measured breathing, then a sharp intake of breath. What? I demanded. What's wrong? Found my old phone, she whispered. The one Ryan took away after the last miscarriage. Said it was too stressful for me to be constantly connected. Bring it, I instructed. Anything else? My passport, birth certificate, the necklace from Grandma. Items that represented freedom, identity, history. Everything the Whitlocks had tried to strip away. More rustling, then Emily's voice slightly louder. Just 5 more minutes, Ryan. Finding the right shoes. Back to a whisper. I'm heading to the study now. It's across the hall. Jake and I exchanged tense glances. 10 minutes remaining. Through the phone, I heard the careful opening of a door, soft footsteps, the sliding of drawers. Jackpot, Emily breathed. Medical files, insurance papers, everything. Hurry, I urged, checking the time again. Pages turning, the snap of a phone camera, Emily documenting everything she could. Emily? Ryan's voice suddenly closer. What are you doing in my study? My heart stopped. Jake reached for his door handle, ready to move. Looking for aspirin, Emily replied smoothly. I have such a headache after everything. The aspirin is in our bathroom, Ryan said, suspicion evident. Where you just were. Oh, right, I forgot. A beat of silence. Then, what's that in your hand? Nothing. Let me see. Shuffling. A thud. The sound of papers falling. My medical files? Emily's voice rose. Why do you have all my medical records in your desk? Those are private, Ryan snapped. Put them back. Private from me? They're my records, Ryan. You're being hysterical again. Am I? Or am I finally seeing clearly for the first time? The phone connection crackled with movement, voices becoming harder to distinguish. I pressed it harder against my ear, straining to hear. What's that bag for? Ryan demanded. Are you leaving? After you just promised to come back? I changed my mind. You don't get to change your mind. You're my wife. Not for much longer. The sound of a slap echoed through the phone, followed by a gasp. Jake was already out of the car, and I was right behind him, phone still clutched in my hand. You ungrateful bitch. Ryan's voice, clear now, ugly with rage. After everything we've given you. Given me? Emily's voice was steady despite everything. You've taken everything from me. My confidence, my independence, maybe even my babies. What are you talking about? The tea, Ryan. Your mother's special fertility tea. Did you know what was in it? Or did you just not care? Silence, then a chilling laugh. Oh, Emily, always so dramatic. Tell me the truth. Did you... No. What if I did? Ryan's voice was cold, calculating now. You really think anyone would believe you over us? The unstable wife with the history of mental health issues, which, by the way, are well documented by the therapist we hired. I have proof, Emily said. The medical records, the pattern of hormone levels. You have theories. I have a family name that goes back 5 generations in this city. Who do you think wins that fight? Jake and I were halfway to the house now, moving as quickly and quietly as possible. 7 minutes left on our timeline, though it was clearly already blown. Let me pass, Ryan. Emily's voice was firm. I'm leaving. With what? No money, no car, no future? You signed a prenup, remember? You leave, you get nothing. I don't want your money, I never did. A harsh laugh. Right. The martial arts instructor's daughter didn't marry into one of Idaho's wealthiest families for the money. Tell me another one. I married you because I loved you, Emily said, her voice breaking slightly. God help me. I actually loved you. Love, Ryan scoffed. What has love ever built? My grandfather didn't build this family on love. He built it on strategy, on knowing which pieces to move and which to sacrifice. And I was just a piece to be sacrificed. You were supposed to be an asset, he corrected coldly. Pretty. Educated enough to be interesting, but not threatening. Perfect for hosting, for charity work, for producing the next generation of Whitlocks. But you couldn't even manage that. Because your mother was poisoning me. Emily's control finally broke, her voice rising in accusation. She was protecting our legacy, Ryan shot back, making sure any children would come when we were ready, not when you decided to trap me. The phone connection crackled. Movement, struggle. Let me go, Ryan. You're not going anywhere. Not with those files. Jake and I reached the front door just as a crash sounded through the phone. Glass breaking. A cry of pain. I didn't wait. I tried the door, locked, then stepped back and kicked it open. Years of martial arts training behind the blow. The foyer was empty, but another crash led us toward the study. We burst in to find Emily backed against a bookcase, a bleeding cut on her cheek, clutching her bag to her chest. Ryan stood before her, a shattered crystal paperweight at his feet, his handsome face twisted with rage. He spun toward us, momentarily shocked, then composed himself with frightening speed. Detective Martinez? He acknowledged Jake coolly. This is a private matter between my wife and me. Not anymore, Jake replied, hand resting meaningfully on his service weapon. Step away from her, Mr. Whitlock. Ryan's eyes narrowed, calculating odds, advantages, escape routes. The mind of a predator cornered. My wife is unwell, he tried, voice reasonable now. She's been struggling since her miscarriage. We're just trying to get her the help she needs. I'm not unwell, Emily said clearly, stepping forward. I'm leaving my abusive husband, and I'm taking evidence of what his family did to me. Ryan lunged then, grabbing for the bag. I moved without thinking, decades of muscle memory taking over. One precise strike to the solar plexus, and Ryan Whitlock, heir to millions, darling of Boise society, doubled over, gasping for air. Assaulting an officer's witness, Jake commented, moving forward to restrain him. Not smart, Whitlock. You can't touch me, Ryan wheezed, still arrogant even as Jake secured his wrists with zip ties. Do you know who my father is? A retired judge with no jurisdiction here, Jake replied evenly. And you just committed assault in front of 2 witnesses, one of them a police officer. Emily stepped toward me, bag still clutched to her chest, blood trickling from the cut on her cheek. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, feeling her trembling beneath my touch. "Let's go," I murmured. "Right now." "This isn't over," Ryan called. After us, as Jake marched him toward the door. "You think you can just walk away? My family will destroy you both." Emily paused at the doorway, turning back to look at the man she'd once loved enough to marry. "No, Ryan," she said quietly. "They won't. Because unlike you, I understand what real strength is." As we walked out of the Whitlock mansion, Emily's head held high despite her injuries. I felt a fierce pride unlike anything I'd known in all my years of coaching champions. My daughter was finally fighting back. "He hit you." The words tasted like ash in my mouth as I dabbed antiseptic on the cut beneath Emily's eye. We were back at the hotel, Jake having taken Ryan to the station for processing. "Not exactly." Emily winced. "He threw the paperweight at the wall. A piece ricocheted. That's still assault." "I know." She sat very still, eyes closed as I applied a butterfly bandage to the wound. "I got it all, Mom. The medical records, my journals, even emails I printed between Ryan and Evelyn about the Emily situation." "Good," I said, capping the antiseptic. "Now we need a lawyer." Emily's eyes opened, suddenly weary. "What's the point?" "Ryan's right. No one will believe us. Over the Whitlocks. Jake believes us. I believe us. And with evidence." "Evidence of what?" "Emotional abuse is nearly impossible to prove in court. And the miscarriages." She trailed off, picking at a loose thread on her borrowed sweater. "Even if Evelyn was tampering with my tea, how do we prove intent? She'll say it was an herbal remedy, that she didn't know it could cause harm." I sat beside her on the bed. "So we just give up? Let them win?" "No," Emily said after a moment. "But we need to be smarter than them. A direct attack won't work." She was right. The Whitlocks were entrenched in Boise's power structure. A frontal assault would be like charging a fortress with a water pistol. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Ryan out on bail. Daddy's connections worked fast. Be careful." I showed it to Emily, who nodded grimly. "See? They're already circling the wagons. So what's your plan?" She reached for the bag she'd retrieved from the mansion, pulling out a slim journal bound in blue leather. "Evidence is only useful if people see it. And the Whitlocks control who sees what in this town. So we go outside this town," I suggested. "State authorities. FBI even." Emily shook her head. "Harold has friends there too. We need to think bigger." She flipped through the journal until she found what she was looking for. "Remember Cynthia Walsh?" The name was vaguely familiar. "Your college roommate? The journalism major?" "She works for the Seattle Times now. Investigative reporting, specifically focused on medical fraud and corruption." I caught her drift immediately. "You want to go public?" "Not just public, national." Emily's eyes gleamed with determination. "The Whitlocks can control the Boise judiciary, maybe even state officials, but they can't control the national press." It was bold, risky, and potentially devastating for all of us. "They'll come after you," I warned. "Lawsuits, smear campaigns, they'll paint you as unstable, vindictive. Let them try." Emily opened another journal, this one filled with precise, dated entries. "I've documented everything for years. Every criticism, every isolation tactic, every accident that wasn't really an accident. I thought I was being paranoid, but deep down I knew something was wrong. Pride swelled in my chest. Even at her lowest, my daughter had been fighting. Quietly, secretly, but fighting. Nonetheless. "When did you start keeping these?" I asked, leafing through the pages of meticulous notes. "After the second miscarriage. Something Evelyn said." She paused, remembering. She said, "Perhaps it's for the best. The timing wasn't ideal anyway." As if my baby dying was a convenient scheduling adjustment. My hands clenched into fists. "We're going to destroy them." Emily's smile was sad. "Not destroy, expose. There's a difference, Mom. Destruction comes from hate. Exposure comes from truth. Always the teacher, my daughter." Even now, she was thinking of the lesson, not the revenge. We spent the next several hours organizing the evidence, creating a timeline of events, preparing a case that even the most skeptical journalist couldn't ignore. Emily contacted Cynthia, who agreed, to meet us in Seattle the following day. Around midnight, there was a knock at our hotel door. I tensed, moving Emily behind me as I approached cautiously. "Who is it?" I called. "Jake." I opened the door to find him looking exhausted, still in uniform, a thick folder under his arm. "Sorry for the late hour," he said, stepping inside, "but I thought you should see this right away." He laid the folder on the desk and opened it to reveal medical reports, lab results, and pharmacy records. "What am I looking at?" I asked, scanning the technical language. "Proof," Jake said simply. "My friend at St. Luke's pulled Emily's complete medical history. Look at the hormone levels after each miscarriage." Emily leaned forward, brow furrowed as she examined the numbers. "They're identical, down to the decimal, which is statistically impossible in natural miscarriages," Jake confirmed, "but consistent with ingestion of certain herbs known to terminate pregnancies." "Pennyroyal," Emily whispered. "It was in the tea. I remember looking it up once because of the smell. The article mentioned it was historically used to induce abortions, but I thought—" She shook her head. "I thought I was being paranoid." "You weren't." Jake pulled out another document. "I also found this in the sealed juvenile case I mentioned. Ryan's ex-girlfriend at boarding school. She was pregnant, lost the baby under suspicious circumstances. Her parents tried to press charges, but Harold made it go away. The pattern was clear now, horrifying in its calculated cruelty. The Whitlocks had done this before, would likely do it again, to some other woman who didn't fit their perfect mold. This changes everything," I said. "With this evidence, we still need to be careful," Jake cautioned. "Harold's already making calls, trying to paint this as a domestic dispute blown out of proportion. He's spinning the narrative that Emily is mentally unstable, that you're manipulating her." "Let him spin," Emily said, a new resolve in her voice. "We have the truth." Jake nodded, but his expression remained troubled. "Truth doesn't always win, Emily. Not against power like theirs." "It does if enough people hear it," she countered. "That's why we're taking this to the press." Jake considered this, then slowly nodded. "It's risky, but it might be your best shot." He checked his watch. "I should go. I'm not supposed to be here technically. Could compromise the case." "What case?" I asked. "I thought Ryan was already out on bail." "The assault charge, yes. But these medical records?" Jake tapped the folder. "They open up a whole new investigation. Tampering with medication, intentionally causing harm. Will it stick?" Emily asked, hope and skepticism warring in her voice. Jake's expression was grim. "Not if Harold has his way. That's why your press strategy might be the best option. Create enough public pressure that they can't make it disappear." After Jake left, Emily and I sat in silence, the weight of what we were about to do settling over us like a heavy blanket. "Are you sure about this?" I finally asked. "Going public means no going back. Your privacy, your pain, it all becomes a headline." Emily looked down at her hands. Steady now, no longer trembling. "I spent 4 years hiding my pain to protect their image. I'm done hiding." She picked up her old phone, the one Ryan had taken away, and powered it on. After a moment, it lit up, notifications flooding the screen. "I need to make one more call," she said, scrolling through her contacts. "There's someone else who needs to know the truth before we go public." "Who?" Emily's expression was complicated, part determination, part sorrow. "Melissa Whitlock, Ryan's sister." "I didn't know he had a sister," I said, surprised. "Not many people do. She's been erased from the family narrative. Living in Portland now." Emily's voice softened. "She warned me, Mom, before the wedding. Said I didn't know what I was walking into. I thought she was just bitter about some old family rift. And now? Now I think she might be the only Whitlock who ever told me the truth." As Emily dialed the number, I wondered how many other secrets the Whitlock mansion held behind its perfect facade, how many other lives had been broken to maintain the illusion of legacy and power. And I knew with absolute certainty that no matter what came next, lawsuits, threats, public scrutiny, we would face it together. Because some truths demand to be told, no matter the cost. The Seattle Times building stood tall against the gray January sky, its windows reflecting clouds heavy with unshed rain. Emily and I sat in the lobby, waiting for Cynthia Walsh to come down and escort us upstairs. We'd driven through the night to get here, putting as much distance as possible between us and Boise after Jake's warning text. Whitlock's filing restraining order, claiming Emily mentally unstable. Get out now. "Are you ready for this?" I asked Emily, watching her straighten the collar of her borrowed blouse. The cut on her cheek had faded to an angry red line, visible evidence of what she'd endured. "I've been ready for 4 years," she replied, a calm certainty in her voice that hadn't been there before. "I just didn't know it. The elevator doors opened, and a woman with a sleek bob and sharp eyes strode toward us. Cynthia Walsh looked exactly like the award-winning investigative journalist she'd become, confident, focused, and utterly unimpressed by power or wealth. "Emily Cooper," she said, embracing my daughter with genuine warmth before turning to me. "And you must be Maggie. Thank you both for trusting me with this story." "Thank you for believing us," Emily replied. Cynthia's expression turned serious. "I believe in evidence. And what you sent me last night?" She shook her head. "Let's just say I've been covering medical fraud for 7 years, and I've never seen anything this calculated. Or this cruel." She led us to a conference room where her editor, a silver-haired man named Paul, was waiting with legal counsel. For the next 3 hours, Emily laid out her story with remarkable composure, supported by the medical records, journal entries, and emails we'd collected. When she described finding herself locked outside on Christmas Eve, Paul removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. "And no one checked on you? For 2 hours?" "They could see me through the window," Emily said quietly. "They chose not to help." The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Diane, tapped her pen against a legal pad. "The medical evidence is strong. The pattern of miscarriages, identical hormone levels, the connection to the tea Mrs. Whitlock provided. It's compelling." "What about Ryan's juvenile record?" I asked. "The previous girlfriend who miscarried?" Diane shook her head. "Sealed records are tricky. We'd need her to come forward." "Melissa might know how to reach her," Emily suggested, referring to our late-night call with Ryan's estranged sister. She implied there were others. "Others?" Paul's eyebrows shot up. "You think this is a pattern across generations?" "Melissa said their mother had 3 miscarriages before Ryan was born," Emily explained, all after Harold's father expressed concerns about her suitability as a Whitlock wife. Cynthia was taking rapid notes. "This isn't just about one controlling family. This is systemic abuse masked by wealth and social standing," which makes it an even bigger story, Paul agreed, "but also more dangerous to publish. The Whitlocks won't take this lying down." "They're already fighting back," I confirmed, showing them the text from Jake about the restraining order. "They're painting Emily as unstable, me as manipulative. Classic Darvo," Diane commented. "Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Standard playbook for abusers when confronted." "So what now?" Emily asked. "How do we proceed?" Paul and Cynthia exchanged glances. "We verify everything independently," Cynthia said. "Cross-check medical records, interview other witnesses if possible. Build an airtight case before we publish." "How long will that take?" I asked, anxiety creeping into my voice. "The Whitlocks are powerful. If they find us before the story breaks, 3 days, Paul decided. "We fast-track this. In the meantime, we put you both up somewhere safe, off the grid." "I have a cabin," Cynthia offered, "on Whidbey Island. No one knows about it except my brother who built it." Relief washed over me. 3 days. We could manage 3 days in hiding. As we left the building through a service entrance, a precaution suggested by Diane, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Flight arrives 5 p.m., bringing Tessa with me." Melissa," Emily explained, showing me the message. "And Tessa must be Ryan's ex from boarding school. She's coming here? Now?" Emily nodded. "I asked her to. After our call last night, she said she'd been waiting years for someone to finally expose the truth. This changes everything," I realized. "With her testimony, we can prove pattern and intent," Emily finished. "Not just my case, but a multi-generational history of abuse." For the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt a flicker of genuine hope. The Whitlocks were powerful, yes, but their power relied on silence, on isolation, on convincing each victim they were alone in their suffering. That silence was about to be shattered. The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity. Cynthia's cabin proved to be a peaceful sanctuary, rustic but comfortable, surrounded by towering cedars and overlooking a quiet bay. Melissa and Tessa arrived as promised, bringing with them stories that mirrored Emily's with devastating similarity. Tessa Patterson had been 17 when she dated Ryan at boarding school. When she became pregnant, Evelyn had taken her under her wing, providing the same specialty that would later be given to Emily. "I lost the baby at exactly 12 weeks, Tessa explained, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee as we all sat in the cabin's small living room. "Just like you, just like all of yours." "Did you suspect?" Emily asked gently. Tessa nodded. "I knew something was wrong with that tea. It smelled like medicine, not herbs. But when I tried to refuse it, Evelyn would get this look. She shuddered. Like she was disappointed in me. Like I was failing some test. That's how they control you, Melissa added bitterly, making you constantly seek their approval while ensuring you never quite earn it. Melissa's own story was perhaps the most heartbreaking. The younger Whitlock child, she'd been systematically erased from family narratives after coming out as gay at 19. No photos on the mantle. No mentions in Christmas letters, her trust fund revoked. I wasn't the Whitlock heir they wanted, she explained, so I became a ghost. Each woman's testimony added another layer to the case Cynthia was building, a damning portrait of a family that treated people as possessions, discarding those who didn't conform to their vision of perfection. On our third morning at the cabin, Jake called with news from Boise. The restraining order was denied, he reported, relief evident in his voice. Judge Watkins, one of the few not in Harold's pocket, saw through their claims. What about the assault charges against Ryan? I asked. Still pending, but shaky. Harold spinning it as a misunderstanding during a domestic dispute. Without Emily's testimony. She'll testify, I assured him. When the time is right? There's something else, Jake said, hesitation in his voice. The Whitlocks are holding a press conference tomorrow. They're getting ahead of the story somehow. My stomach dropped. How could they know? Boise's a small town, Maggie. Word gets around. After hanging up, I relayed the news to Emily and the others. Rather than panic, Emily merely nodded, a strange calmness settling over her. Let them talk, she said. It won't matter after tomorrow. She was right. The next morning, Cynthia arrived at the cabin with copies of the Seattle Times fresh off the press. The headlines sprawled across the front page, Whitlock family scandal, pattern of abuse, medical tampering exposed. The story was devastating in its thoroughness. Medical records, expert testimony, accounts from Emily, Tessa, and Melissa, all on the record. Photos of Emily's journals, the damning emails between Ryan and Evelyn, lab analyses of the fertility tea revealing pennyroyal and other abortifacient herbs. By noon, the story had been picked up by national outlets. By dinner, it was trending on social media. Shine Whitlock scandal. Justice for Emily. Believe women. The Whitlock's hastily arranged press conference became a disaster when reporters, armed with Cynthia's meticulously researched article, asked pointed questions about the miscarriages, the medical tampering, the pattern of abuse. Harold's attempts to dismiss the allegations as a vindictive ex-daughter-in-law's fabrications fell flat in the face of multiple witnesses and documented evidence. That evening, as we watched the fallout unfold on Cynthia's laptop, Emily received a call from an unexpected source. Judge Marian Torres, the most senior female judge in Idaho's district courts. Mrs. Whitlock, she began formally. Cooper, Emily corrected. I'm going back to Cooper. A pause. Ms. Cooper, then. I've been following the reports about your situation with great interest and concern. Thank you, Your Honor, but I want you to know, Judge Torres continued, that not all of us in the judiciary are in Harold Whitlock's pocket. Some of us have been waiting a very long time for someone brave enough to challenge him. Emily's eyes widened as she listened. I see. And what would you suggest I do now? Come back to Boise, Judge Torres said simply. File your divorce papers. Press so. Charges for the assault. I'll personally ensure your case is heard fairly. Harold won't allow that, Emily protested. Harold Whitlock's influence is waning by the hour, the judge replied, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. It seems several of his former colleagues are suddenly very concerned about being associated with him. After the call ended, Emily looked at me, a mixture of disbelief and hope on her face. She says we can go back, that it's safe now. I wasn't entirely convinced. The Whitlocks are wounded, which makes them dangerous. But they're also exposed, Melissa pointed out, and nothing terrifies people like them more than public scrutiny. Emily considered this, then made a decision. I need to go back. Not just for the divorce or the charges, but for me. I can't truly be free until I face them one last time, on my terms. Looking at my daughter, standing tall, speaking with quiet conviction, I realized she was right. This wasn't just about legal proceedings or public vindication. It was about reclaiming her power, her voice, her sense of self. We returned to Boise the next day, a very different homecoming from the Christmas visit that had started it all. This time, Emily wasn't alone and vulnerable. She had me, Jake, Melissa, Tessa, Cynthia, a coalition of support that the Whitlocks, for all their wealth and connections, could never match. And she had something even more powerful, truth, finally brought to light. The The Boise courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when we arrived for the divorce hearing 3 weeks after our return. Emily moved through them with quiet dignity, her head high, answering no questions. I walked beside her, as did Jake, Melissa, and a growing circle of supporters who had rallied around her cause. Inside, Judge Torres presided over a courtroom that hummed with tension. The Whitlocks sat on one side, Ryan, Evelyn, and Harold, their perfect facade now visibly cracking. Ryan's handsome face was haggard, Evelyn's smile strained, Harold's confidence dimmed. On our side sat not just family and friends, but women from across Boise who had come forward after the Seattle Times article broke. Former employees of Whitlock companies, social acquaintances, even a former nanny who had worked in their home, each with their own story of manipulation, control, or cruelty. The proceedings were remarkably straightforward. With the evidence now public and verified, Ryan's attorneys advised him to agree to Emily's terms. A clean break, no alimony either way, a fair division of their joint assets. The prenuptial agreement, designed to leave Emily with nothing, was rendered void due to evidence of coercion and bad faith. When Judge Torres asked if either party wished to make a statement before finalizing the divorce, Ryan declined, his eyes fixed on the table before him. Emily stood, her voice steady as she addressed not just the judge, but the entire courtroom. 4 years ago, I married Ryan Whitlock believing I was entering a family. What I found instead was a fortress built on appearances, control, and the systematic breaking of anyone who didn't conform to their standards of perfection. She turned, slightly, her gaze sweeping over the Whitlocks. I don't hate you. That might be the hardest thing for you to understand. I pitied you for a long time, living in a world where love is transactional, where people are assets or liabilities, where legacy matters more than kindness. But I don't pity you anymore. Emily looked back at Judge Torres. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for resolution, for the chance to close this chapter and begin a new one, not as a victim of the Whitlocks, but as simply Emily Cooper, teacher, daughter, survivor, and hopefully someday, mother to children who will know only love, never conditional acceptance. The courtroom was silent when she finished. Even the court reporter had paused, moved by the quiet power of her words. Judge Torres nodded once. Respect, evident in her expression. Divorce granted, she said, bringing down her gavel with finality. As we prepared to leave, Harold Whitlock approached, still imposing despite the new stoop to his shoulders, the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. This isn't over, he said quietly, for our ears only. You've damaged our name, our legacy. Emily regarded him calmly. No, Harold, you damaged your own legacy. I just refuse to let you damage me anymore. He opened his mouth to respond, but Evelyn appeared at his elbow, pulling him away. Her perfect mask had slipped, revealing the fear beneath, fear of exposure, of consequence, of losing the social standing that had defined her existence. Outside, the February sun broke unexpectedly through the clouds, bathing the courthouse steps in golden light. As we descended, a small group of women waited at the bottom, former clients from my dojo, colleagues from Emily's teaching days, even some of Ryan's ex-girlfriends who had come forward after reading Cynthia's article. They formed a path for us, a living corridor of support and solidarity. As Emily walked between them, many reached out to touch her arm or shoulder, brief connections conveying what words could not. You're not alone. We believe you. We stand with you. What now? I asked, as we reached the end of this impromptu receiving line. Emily took a deep breath, looking out at the city spread below us, the city where she had been both broken and rebuilt. Now we heal, she said simply, and then we help others do the same. In the months that followed, healing took many forms. For Emily, it meant returning to teaching, not in Boise, but at a small school outside Seattle where Cynthia's sister was principal. It meant therapy sessions where she gradually unpacked the layers of manipulation and emotional abuse. It meant learning to trust her own perceptions again, to recognize her worth beyond what others assigned to her. For me, it meant letting go of the guilt I carried for not seeing Emily's suffering sooner, for being absent during crucial years of her marriage. It meant accepting that I couldn't have prevented her pain, but I could be present for her healing. The legal aftermath of the Whitlock scandal continued to unfold. Ryan faced charges for the Christmas Eve assault, eventually pleading to a lesser offense that still required community service and anger management. Evelyn was investigated for medical tampering, though proving criminal intent proved challenging without direct evidence of her preparing the tea. The most significant consequence for the Whitlocks wasn't legal, but social. The family that had ruled Boise society for generations found themselves increasingly isolated. Harold's former colleagues distanced themselves. Charity boards requested Evelyn's resignation. Ryan's law firm placed him on indefinite leave. Their fortress of wealth and influence remained, but its foundations were cracked beyond repair. A year after that fateful Christmas Eve, Emily and I returned to Boise one last time. Not to confront the Whitlocks or revisit old wounds, but to help Jake Martinez open a new community center in one of the city's underserved neighborhoods. The Emily Cooper Center for Women and Children would provide resources for those escaping domestic abuse, with a particular focus on emotional and psychological manipulation, the invisible bruises that so often go unrecognized and untreated. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Emily stood before a crowd of supporters, her face relaxed in a way I hadn't seen since before her marriage. The cut on her cheek had faded to a faint silver line, visible only if you knew to look for it, a reminder rather than a wound. When I left the Whitlock mansion last Christmas, she began, I thought I was leaving with nothing. No money, no position, no future. I was wrong. She looked over at me, then at Jake, Melissa, Cynthia, and the many others who had stood by her. I left with everything that matters, my dignity, my voice, my truth, and the knowledge that I was never alone, even when I felt most isolated. Her gaze swept over the crowd, lingering on several women I recognized from the courthouse steps, from support groups, from the growing network that had formed in the wake of her story. This center exists because too many people still suffer in gilded cages, believing the lies they're told about their worth, their sanity, their options. I want them to know what I finally learned, that the door is never locked from the outside as securely as it is from within, that we always have the power to walk away, even when every voice tells us we don't. She touched the faint scar on her cheek, a gesture that had become almost unconscious. Some scars never completely fade, but they remind us of our strength, not our weakness, of what we survived, not what we lost. As Emily cut the ribbon and the crowd erupted in applause, I felt a profound sense of completion. The circle that had begun on those snowy steps last Christmas, my daughter in my arms, shivering and broken, had closed. Emily stood now on her own feet, strong and whole, helping others find the same path to freedom. Later, as we walked along the Boise River, snow beginning to fall in gentle flakes around us, Emily linked her arm through mine. I never thanked you properly, she said, for showing up that night, for seeing what was happening when I couldn't even see it myself. You don't need to thank me for being your mother, I replied, though I'll always regret not being there. Sooner. Emily shook her head. You were exactly where you needed to be, when I needed you most. That's what matters. We stopped on a footbridge, watching the water flow beneath us, dark and powerful, yet somehow peaceful. You know, Emily said thoughtfully, the Whitlocks spent generations building a legacy of power and control, but in the end, it was hollow, empty. And what about our legacy? I asked. The Cooper women? Emily smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes and warmed something deep inside me. Our legacy is strength, she said. Not the kind that breaks others to build itself up, but the kind that endures, that heals, that reaches back to help the next person struggling to stand. As we continued our walk through the falling snow, I thought about legacy, not as mansions, or bank accounts, or family names etched in granite, but as moments of courage, acts of kindness, truths spoken when silence would be easier. Emily had lost the future she thought she wanted with the Whitlocks, but she had gained something far more valuable, herself, whole and undiminished. And in that discovery lay a legacy more lasting than any fortune, more powerful than any name. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in what we build or acquire, but in what we refuse to become, in the lines we draw, in the quiet dignity of walking away from golden cages toward uncertain freedom. My daughter had learned that lesson through fire and frost, and watching her now, scarred but unbroken, compassionate without being consumed, I knew it had been worth every painful step of the journey. For what? Greater legacy could any mother wish for her daughter than the courage to stand in her own truth, the wisdom to choose her own path, and the heart to help others find theirs.